back for another episode of Real Money, and today it is just me. I want to have a heart-to-heart conversation with you. It is late in the year 2024. I've had a lot of amazing guests on the show this year, and this conversation I want to have with just you about what I believe is going to be required of us as women to get our money game to the next level so that we can ultimately have what I believe is most necessary more than ever today, and that is women taking the reins, women taking the lead financially on the planet today. Today, women hold about 30% of the world's wealth, and it is very disproportionate. That means that there is a lot of women at a high concentration that own the majority of that wealth even. And the world of personal finance is having a lot of conversations with women. And I want to, as an expert, someone who's working with women every single day, the reason I started this podcast overall is to have these real, open, honest conversations about money. So today I'm going to share a couple of things that I've been taking out into the world, onto the stage, taking a stand for women, what it really means. And then we're going to talk about some strategies and ways for you to start thinking about not only how you can master your own finances, but take your game, take your whole financial game to the next level. In perspective, I'm actually on the heels of doing a 2-day live workshop with Lynn Twist, who I've spoken about on the show before. I absolutely adore Lynn. She's on a mission to help women have healthy, not just women, actually, men and women have healthy relationships with money. She wrote the book Soul of Money, and she is helping people take a powerful stand for their purpose in life. And it all connects to money. Everything that we do every single day connects to money. So I'm in this 2-day workshop with Lynn, and the question that she poses out to the group is, what is the stand that you are taking? And the whole reason that I decided to jump into this industry, and well, actually, the whole reason I decided to jump into this workshop, which is all connected to the industry, is that I have had, and I've been very open and vulnerable about this on my show and other places, about me having the courage and trying to figure out how to have the courage, how to take the stand, how to communicate it clearly. And that's what I told Lynn in this workshop. I said, I'm here because I do know what my purpose is, and I want to find a way to communicate it clearly. So we spent the whole day, the first day, talking about from her lens, what it takes for someone to actually take a stand. And then by day 2, of course, she's asking us all to communicate our stand. And when I communicate these things in small groups, I get pretty emotional because these are the things that are really on my heart and the things that really matter most to me. And when it comes to content creation, building a brand, social media, just the ins and outs of sales and building a business, I can get lost just like everyone else in feeling like I have to do a certain thing, a certain way, rather than waking up every single day in my stand, in my purpose. And when I connect back to that, things get simpler and clearer. And maybe that resonates with you watching this or listening this today, is that you also have something in your heart that's really, really important to you. And then you get lost. You get lost in the day-to-day life. You get lost with your kids. You get lost in the conversation between who you have been in your life versus who you want to be in your life. You get lost in, for me, feeling less than, not enough, not worthy. And that's when I start, and that's when I realize that I'm playing small, and I just have to actively work to stay playing a big game. And that requires mentorship, throwing myself into workshops like the workshop I took with Lynn Twist this last couple days. And so here's where I want to open up the show. And then I want to share something that I've been sharing. I may have shared this on the show before, but I'm going to share it again because I think it's ultimately really, really important about the why of this show. The Cash is Queen title is here for a reason. So I'm going to share with you what my stand is. I don't question it. Then I get to ask the question, how do I get into action doing these things? That's for another conversation. So here's my stand. I stand for financial liberation for women. I stand for women to be free. I stand for healthy, loving lives. I stand for independent women who are free to be healthy and loved. I stand for women, children, and men to live peaceful, loving lives. I stand for a healthy environment, businesses, and communities. I stand for inner peace. I stand for kindness and love. I stand for healed families. I stand for women to use our voices and I stand for a healed and whole economy. That's what I was able to pull together from my time with Lynn Twist. And that really is that is what is most important to me when it comes to money. Healthy, healed, whole lives for women to be peaceful and safe, for all the things that would have to happen in order for this stand to be realized, for us to not see war-torn countries or see children or women hurt in domestic violence and other kinds of violence. These are the things that pain me to watch that are happening in the world, but it also is really powerful to come back around and say, well, this is the stand that I'm taking and why it really matters. So financial liberation for women, for me, means that women wake up all over the planet having the ability to do what they want to do, live the lives that they want to live, not be controlled by people, and for them to have safe and loving families, for their kids to have enough food to eat. All of those things are connected to financial liberation. And also, I work with women, and this could be you, who make great money. They have a pretty stable life, but they don't feel free. And that's the other side of it too. That on our mindset side, there are so many of us who have plenty. We have plenty of resources. We have a safe, loving home. We have money in the bank, but we don't feel free. And that's the other side of the coin too. So it may not just be our external circumstances that are not creating freedom. It's our own minds. It's our own beliefs. It's our own worries and anxieties and fears when it comes to money. And so that's why I'm on a mission also to elevate financial EQ for women specifically. But again, when women win, so do men. And here's why. And I'll read this. This comes from Lynn Twist's new book. And so I didn't find it on my own, but I know she didn't, it's a prophecy, so she didn't come up with it on her own either. But she says in the book, and I'll quote, "There's a prophecy from the Baha'i people. They say that the bird of humanity has two great wings, a female wing and a male wing. The bird of humanity has had its male wing fully extended, and fully expressed for centuries, while the female wing in the bird of humanity has been somewhat folded in and not fully expressed. So the male wing, in order to keep the bird of humanity afloat, has become overdeveloped, overmuscular, and in fact has had to become violent. So the bird of humanity is flying in circles and has been for several hundred years. And the prophecy said the first century of the third millennium, and we're only 24 years into that. In the first century of the third millennium, the prophecy says, the feminine wing, the female wing in all of us, in men and women, will fully express itself in this 100-year cycle. The male wing in all of us can relax a little bit, and the bird of humanity, instead of flying in circles, will soar. I don't know about you, but when I read that, it connects the dots for so many reasons about where we are as a world today and a society today. And again, it talks about the male wing and the masculine and the feminine in all of us, because we all carry masculine and feminine energy. And as women in the last 100 years, especially American women in the last 100 years, we've extended and reached into the masculine world to become financially independent, to have equal rights, to be able to have businesses and take on debt and credit, because we hadn't been able to do that prior to being able to vote in the 1970s with legislation being passed for women's rights. So we've also then modeled masculine ways of doing business and living our lives to become independent. And it's created this toxic conversation for all of us, because we don't really want to, and I know I'm speaking broadly for women, but we don't want to compete with men in that way. Like, I really don't feel like we should try to be like men. We are women and beautiful and perfect just the way that we are. But even for me, being in a masculine world, so the right side of my body, I'm right-handed, in the work that I've done with NLP, I've realized that I carry so much stress and weight on my masculine side because in business and in the world, I've had to learn how to operate in the masculine to get shit done. This is where we're all out of balance, is that there's this imbalance of masculine energy in the world. And what would it look like for women to, women to raise up in our feminine, but also give men the opportunity to do that, because there's some clear distinctions between masculine energy and feminine energy, and how we make money and how we live our lives are different based on those kinds of energies. So I'm coaching women today, not just on the financial stuff, because once we figure out the financial stuff, then the bigger questions come up, which is exactly what happens. I help women get stable financially, get them on their, like, in a way where they have clarity and control and focus of their finances. And so then once they can stop stressing about finances, new questions and new challenges present themselves. And the women that I'm attracting into my life right now are asking me, how do I embrace my feminine? How do I feel good in my feminine? How do I trust my feminine? How do I trust that I can relax and open and rest, because that's the feminine energy, and still have a successful business? Or how do I attract a man in my life? Because I have a lot of women who are single or have gone through divorce, who are rediscovering themselves in relationship. And they're asking really powerful questions about how do they become the woman that they need to become to attract the kind of man that they want. And it's a quagmire. It's a quagmire. I mean, I know you listen to other shows and you watch other shows, and people are giving all kinds of advice about dating in the world and how to attract the right people and the law of attraction and all of that. And when it comes to money, the least talked about topic, in my opinion, is embracing the feminine when it comes to money, and how we can be successful financially as women who aren't putting on the armor, I guess armor, but the clothing of men to try to create the results. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen in the same way that men have done it. And I'm not really sure that we want it to. So what I'm going to do on the show right now is talk about wealth building as a concept. And I want to talk about cash and the importance of that in our lives as it pertains to liberation. So I'm going to switch gears, but that's my ultimate why. I think I've communicated that before on the show, but for those of you who are new, there it is again. And I evolve and I grow. I'm going to be 45 next month, and who I am today is totally different from who I was 3 years ago, because I'm constantly evolving, doing the work and asking questions. And I think that part of your journey should be that too, that you should be asking questions and really, instead of following a script of life, getting really curious about what's important to you and how you're going to create what it is that you want in your life. Money's important for a lot of different reasons. You get that. I know that's why you're here. You get that and you're like, well, what do I do about it? And in the era of this time of the planet today, how do we shift some of that toxic masculinity into a healthy balance between male and female? And that will be a continued conversation that I'm going to be having on the show. My next guest the next guest that I'm having on the show is Melissa Blinn, and we're going to talk about all the ways that she and I are working together to help women learn how to operate from a place of pleasure instead of pain, because that's feminine pleasure. Everybody wants that. And also how we can live in our feminine more often, more frequently, to attract all the things that we want in our life, and how we can heal the parts of us that aren't working. And I'm doing that work in my world, and she's doing that work in our world. So we're pulling that together. But when it comes to money, I'm going to start here. The way that if you want to take out notes and start taking notes, this would be a good time to do it. The way that you build wealth is going to be different for you compared to other people, because you are wired to work differently. In my last episode with Gail Swift, we had an in-depth conversation about how people are wired to do things differently, and that's through the lens of the Kolbe. So connecting the Kolbe to how you work, my money personality test gives you a breakdown once you take the test of who you are with money, and based on those results, what ways you should be building wealth, what ways you should be operating with your money based on how you work best. Now, there's a distinction with the money personalities. There's who you are with money based on your strengths, your cognitive strengths, how you work, how you communicate. There's how you were raised. And so a lot of work that I do in my world is reconciling for a lot of people where they were raised, how they were raised, and who they actually are. So let me give you an example of this. For someone before the age of 7, you have these imprinting years. And these imprinting years become your DNA in a lot of ways for how you see the world and operate in the world. Because if your parents, for example, and this comes up a lot in my world, if your parents raised you in an environment of instability and insecurity, where there wasn't more than enough ever, and maybe there was a lot of fighting or arguing when it came to money. Before the age of 7, you saw that, you took that in. That's a lens of scarcity and fear financially. And so you are at a young age imprinted into a world, and you made some decisions about that. You made some decisions about money. So I've said this before with my mom. I hear my mom still say things like money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't buy happiness. And there was this negative lens about people with money from my mom's perspective growing up that imprinted onto me. Same thing happened with you. You had things happen when you were young. They imprinted into you. They became a belief system of yours. And now you're a grown-ass woman and you're like, wait a minute, I need to start questioning these things. Like how I was raised isn't necessarily who I'm supposed to be. And that can be conflict. That can show up as conflict because you want to do certain things your way as an adult, but based on how you were raised and how your family's raised, you might have to go against the grain to do what it is that you need to do to create the results that you want to create. So for example, if you grew up in a household or a family that were all W-2s, like me, people collected a paycheck for a living, they saved into their 401k, and then they ultimately, at some point, retired. That's what my dad did, and that's what a lot of people do on the planet today. My husband is in the union. He's gonna have a great pension, and wealth building outside of that wasn't a conversation that he ever had growing up. So he couldn't see it because it was never installed into him. But some people wake up and go, wait a minute, if this isn't how I'm raised, how do I actually create freedom? How do I create liberation? Which I'm starting to use a lot more than freedom, because liberation to me is a feeling and an experience that's different from freedom, because freedom is a concept, but there's a lot of people that don't even if they have a lot of money, don't feel free. And I feel like it's overused in the money industry. So for that reason, I'm using liberation, because people are like, I want to feel liberated. I want to feel like I can do whatever I want to do. I can do what the fuck I want to do. You're like, yeah, I want to feel that too. Okay, which means that you've got some chains to break. You've got some patterns to heal, some cycles to change, all of the things. Based on your money personality, then what we figure out is that there's how you were born, there's mindset that you were born into, and then there's how you are ultimately going to build wealth based on your strengths. So as an example, I've had over 5,000 people take my money personality test, and the top percentage of people, like I want to say something like 40% of people who have taken my test are dreamers in their money personality category. So there's something going on there where people are saying, I want to have a different relationship with money, and the way I learn money isn't working for me. Who am I with money? How do I design a world that works for me for money? And for my dreamers, these are people who take the test and they think big. This is me. We think big, we dream big, and we have a healthy relationship with risk. Meaning we can risk and take action, and we can fail more than other people. It's just part of our DNA. In the Kolbe, that shows up as people who thrive with risk and uncertainty in their Kolbe. So my Kolbe is a long green line. It's a 10 in the quick start arena, which means that I thrive and work really well in situations of uncertainty and instability. And I like to take risk. That's how I'm wired, which would make a ton of sense for things that I did when I was a kid that my parents did not really love because it scared the bejesus out of them. But also as a business owner, the risks that I take every single day as a business owner scare a lot of people because they don't have that long green line in the quick start. So there's how I'm how I'm wired, and I take risk pretty easily compared to other people. My money personality and how I build wealth are intimately connected. So in this next part of the show, I'm going to talk about different ways you can build wealth, but I want to first connect the dots to every money personality and how each money personality is geared for certain kinds of wealth building because of who you are. I want you to question and get curious about who you are versus how you were raised. There's a huge conversation in Instagram and mental health and people's patterns and generational cycles. And for this generation of women and people on the planet right now, we're breaking through a ton of generational pain. We're breaking through a ton of generational patterns. And those come from how you were imprinted. But if you're going to have something different, you have to do something different. And the money personality is a great place for you to start to identify and get curious about what your imprinting was versus who you are. So we have the 5 money personalities. I talked about the dreamer. We have the avoider, which I'll come around to last. We've got the dreamer, the spender, the saver, and the over generous one. And then we have our avoider. So each of these money personalities is going to be different with money. And you already know that because in your household, you've got all of these different money personalities that interact with each other differently. Your why may be a little different, and how you interact with money is going to be different. So I already talked about dreamers, big riskers. These are people who are geared for entrepreneurship, who are built to take big risks. If you're going to be a business owner and an entrepreneur, you're going to have to put your ass on the line. And someone who is in the dreamer category is going to use their talents to build wealth in that way. Then we have our spenders. These are people who like the rhythm and motion of money. I've said this in my money personality course, which you can go back and take. But with my spenders, great ways to build wealth for spenders are people who have motion of money. So they make great business owners also. Because of the generation of money. These are good people in sales because they can generate a lot. And also flipping homes is a really good example of that. Let's talk about our impact people. Those are our givers. So those are our overgenerous Olivias, our givers. These are people who wake up every day wanting to be in service to others. Las Vegas is a huge philanthropic town, and we have a ton of givers. We have people who have accumulated wealth for themselves or have inherited wealth, and they're leaving a legacy and giving impact. And these are people who wake up every single day wanting to make an impact for others, and they're going to build wealth and generate wealth in order to do that, to be able to give tenfold. So I have a dreamer, giver personality, money personality. And then the avoider. We have the avoider who this person does not enjoy conflict. I would say for most people fit into one of the other 4 categories authentically. And then we have some avoiders who are stuck or in conflict, who don't know how to overcome their emotional relationship with money. So they just stay stuck. That's not a natural way to get things done, but someone could be avoiding something because they don't have enough information. And that could be another reason why they're avoiding, depending on their Colby. If people aren't able to operate in their lane and they don't know what that is, they can avoid. And I think that we all avoid at one time or another financially if we don't know how to operate the way that we were born to operate. And then we have our savers. Oh, I love our savers. We've got a lot of people in the money industry who are savers, who spend a lot of time in, sadly, and not enough conversation. People who are savers tend to want to hoard their money. So something to get curious about is, are you a saver because you came from scarcity and fear is driving the bus? Or are you a saver because you're a long red and blue line on the Colby and you like to methodically analyze data and you love to see the trends go up. And as a saver, Warren Buffett he does this beautifully. He doesn't take a ton of risk. He never has carried a ton of debt, but slowly but surely as a saver, he has grown his wealth. And that is something that some people do really, really well. And some people are like dreamers and they're going to take a lot of risks. So it really just depends on your money personality. So let me give you some examples of successful people on the planet today based on their money personalities. Dreamers, for sure, I would say Elon Musk. We tease that the dreamers are delusional Delilahs too, but these are people who think big and they dream big. So regardless of what you think about him as a human being, as a dreamer, he has definitely mastered the ability to think big and dream big. He's like, we're gonna take this and we're gonna go real big with it. And he's created things on this planet that didn't exist prior to him being here. Huge, big picture kind of guy. And if you follow his financial journey, he has taken a ton of risk to get where he is today as a business owner. And he's also had a ton of failure. But for someone who's a dreamer, thinking big and dreaming big, that's a good example of someone like at the highest level playing a big game as a dreamer. Spenders. I give this example in my money personality course. That would be someone like Ellen DeGeneres. She not only built her media empire, but at the same time, she flipped homes. She's created over 150 million. I'm sure it's more by now. Millions and millions and millions of dollars by flipping homes, buying homes, renovating them, flipping them. The movement of the money is something that's really exciting for her. And I think that as a spender personality, you got to match into more kinds of industries where you can do that and not feel or be made wrong about it. Sales is also another great. Some of the wealthiest people on the planet are people who are in sales. Spenders are great in sales because they think on their toes and they move, and they probably do have a lot of that green line in the Colby. Givers are people who think about other people. These are people like, I would say, Gandhi, who are very purposeful. Lynn Twist, for sure. They think about people. They think about purpose. People who run nonprofits can be very successful doing those things, but they're very focused on giving back. Oprah's a huge giver in the way that she's done it. Of course, she built her media empire first, but now she's giving and giving and giving and giving. And that's a good example of a woman on the planet who is amplifying that money personality. Really, ultimately, I think that everybody could work to actively get out of the avoider category if you have a mission to build wealth. You can't avoid your money. You can't avoid your purpose. You can't avoid your focus. You've got to take action. You've got to work past the emotions, whatever those are, and heal so that you can have the results that you want to have. So that's the money personality and how it connects into different ways that you could potentially choose your lane for wealth generation and wealth creation. Let's talk about different ways then people build wealth. I've done a lot of research on some of the wealthiest people on the planet today. Interestingly enough, the top female billionaires on the planet today are in China. And these are women who built businesses and companies with their husbands. And those companies took off and they are in ownership of those billions today. So the wealthiest people on the planet today, if you do your research on this, I know I have, the people that have the most amount of wealth on the planet today either came from or are themselves business owners. Business owners who have grown more than one business, but started with one. Think about in the last 30, 40 years, the most successful, wealthiest people on the planet are people who built their empires through business ownership, selling businesses, flipping businesses, acquiring businesses, all the things. For the dreamers out there, that can feel pretty motivating. You're like, hell yeah, I'm doing that right now. And for those of you who aspire to have the wealth that you want, the question is, if it's not business ownership, what would it be? I know for me, that's exactly why I'm building my business today, is to have a legacy, because that's the giver in me, make a difference, that's the giver in me, and to build wealth. I'm not ashamed to say that. I used to be, because of my imprinting. I had a connection to wealth as if it was this dirty thing. Even my husband and I were having a conversation the other day about wealthy people. And we were going to dinner with a new friend who's building and scaling $1 billion business right now. And my husband was like, well, who did he have to fuck over to get the money that he has today, to have the success that he has today? That's a limiting belief. And I challenged my husband on that. I'm sure he's still thinking about it, because I was like, well, that's not That's not my experience of this person. Is that something that you can relate to when it comes to wealthy people? The world right now is spinning around this conversation about wealth. And so just to bring it back home to you, if you aspire to not just be rich, not just have cash flow, which I'm going to end this conversation on cash flow, but if you aspire to have wealth, what are you going to do to get there? So we talked about business ownership, but then let's talk about another way that really successful people build wealth, and that's through real estate. There's these camps. It's really fun. So if you start paying attention to this as you're on Instagram watching experts or YouTube learning from different experts, there's these different camps of people who plant their flag as if their way to build wealth is the only way and the best way to build wealth. And it's pretty funny having been in the finance industry now for the last 10 years and not really existing in one of these camps because I have experts and know people in all of these different areas. But you've got these traditional camps of people who believe that their way is the best way to build wealth. So we have our real estate camp. We have our business ownership camp. And then we have our investing and financial advisory camp, which also included into that is insurance. So if you listen to real estate people, they're going to tell you that the best way to build wealth is through real estate, and that's short-term rentals, and that's multi-family units, and all the different ways that people can build real estate. And they champion it, and they talk about it all the time. And then you have the investing people where I started my journey in financial advice is in being a financial advisor, where I had my financial licenses and I was licensed to help people create financial strategies, financial plans for how they were going to build wealth. And then we put them into different investment strategies, all relating and circling around insurance products and investment advisory services. So these are people who are selling and financial advice from the place of, one, you've got to have a financial plan. You've got to have a roadmap to get there. And you've got to make sure that you're investing in the right places. And that typically means in the right investment products and the right investment portfolios in order to grow your wealth. So these are people who believe strongly in the S&P, putting your money in the stock market, playing the stock market. Trading is an example of people jump into trading stocks. I have a friend, Tila, who does this masterfully. She's built wealth for herself in this way. She trades stocks and she's built wealth doing that. Cool. Good for her. But that fits into that camp too. Annuities, selling a life insurance products, maximizing those products, learning how those products work. There's that camp of people. Is it right or wrong? No, not one is right or the other is right. It's really just the question of what's going to be best for you. And holistically, this is a conversation that's missing from most financial people because they usually attach to one of these camps. So someone that I've been following and fangirling for a long time is Cody Sanchez. This is the business owner camp. Cody Sanchez made it big. She's connected to a bunch of people here in Las Vegas that I know. I don't know Cody myself, but check her out on Instagram. No. Well, she's on Instagram, but check her out on YouTube. So Cody Sanchez talks about buying and selling boring businesses. And she and her husband started out buying laundromats. They bought their first laundromat, I think, all in somewhere around $20K. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was like $20K. So this is kind of how an average American, you can save money. You can take that money. You can invest it in your first business. I have a friend who's done this repeatedly. And then you sell it. Or it just sits there and it creates passive income for you. And so she's teaching people now not just how to do laundromats, but how to do Postmates or not Postmates, like UPS stores, those kinds of stores where you can literally just with very little buy-in, open one of these stores and it becomes a cash flow revenating vehicle for you. And I have one client right now that I'm working with on that strategy because she took her Colby. This is where all the rubber meets the road. This is why I'm going to end with a conversation about cash. But how do you make this deeply personal for you? Well, for this client who is choosing to go the boring business route, when she took her Colby, she has a long red line and a long blue line. She's got a lot of fact finder and a lot of follow through. She does not love taking risk. Her green line is like a 2 when it comes to risk and uncertainty. So it's not something that she loves. She's been in real estate for 25 years, and she's been in a lot of pain because she's been working against her grain. She does not love the risk and uncertainty of real estate. She does not love the highs and lows and cyclical nature of real estate. She doesn't love that some months you make 30 grand and some months you make nothing. It doesn't work for her. Bringing it back to you, when you pick a camp and maybe you just try to diversify, maybe you try to use more than one strategy, but I would say that for if you aspire to have wealth, true wealth, you got to start by picking a camp. Pick a camp, pick a way that you're going to build wealth. Maybe you're asking me now, you're like, well, I don't see W-2. I don't see being an employee in this camp. And you're right, because the wealthiest people on the planet have investments in different places for different purposes. As a W-2 employee, the not having that risk because you're a W-2 employee probably works for you. You know where your money is coming from. Is it secured? No, because no job is secured. But none of these camps, real estate, investing, we saw people lose everything in 2008, regardless of what camp they were in, okay? So being a W-2 employee just means that if you aspire to build wealth and that having that security of that paycheck is important to you, or you just love your career, right? You don't want to own a business. It's not in your vision. It's not in your focus, but you're going to be the best human being in your field ever. And you're going to be a W-2 for the rest of your life. You can still take the money that you're earning and put it into one of these different camps and have your money start working for you. So for example, the most common way a W-2 person today, this is what Dave Ramsey talks about a lot, is putting your money away in a 401k. So you save your money in a 401k for your entire career, and over time that builds and it multiplies. That's the stock market. Your funds, we call these institutional funds, are being invested on your behalf and they're growing for you. And in order for you to get to the cash flow that you want, ending this conversation on cash flow as a W-2, you want to start thinking about what are the best places for you to invest your money if you're not going to be an owner or builder in that space. So a lot of people who are W-2 employees choose real estate. Maybe they buy one short-term rental Airbnb property to get started, and then they buy another. I have a friend, she's been on the podcast before. Her name's Parker. This is exactly how she and her husband did it. She had a mortgage company, but her husband was a W-2. They bought their first short-term rental, and then they bought their second short-term rental. And over time, that short-term rental income replaced his W-2 income. Well, he really wasn't happy as a W-2 employee anyway, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe he just had a bigger vision for himself, but eventually he was able to leave. This is an interesting strategy. And as a W-2 employee, again, the biggest question you want to ask is, how can your money work for you? If you're not going to jump into one of these camps all feet in, how are you going to be investing your money so that you have the cash flow that you want to live the life that you want to live? Full circle moment. You're like, oh my God, Lisa, where are we going with this? Let me land the plane for you. My purpose is for people that I work with and for my channels to talk openly and honestly about the different ways people build wealth so that you as a human being can start to look at through all these lenses, through the money personality, different personality quizzes, getting to know yourself, breaking through fear and scarcity, all with the purpose of creating financial liberation. And for women, we're not going to do it the same way that men do it. So in a lot of ways, we got to break the fucking mold. We got to start looking at through the lens of women, like, all right, well, what are other successful women doing on this planet? And if there isn't a model of that, you get to learn for yourself what it's going to take for you to have what it is that you want. But maybe there's not another woman on the planet that's done what you want to do. That's really exciting. Now is the time. But let's wrap this around to why cash is queen. No matter what investment platform you choose, no matter if you choose because you feel like you're built for it, you choose to go to real estate and you want to build financially in real estate, or if you go the business ownership route and you want to build a company, or you're running your family's company and you want to take it all the way, or you want to do it through investments investment portfolios, making sure that you have diversified portfolio in different places in the stock market, or annuities, whatever you choose. First, you've got to do the research and education to know who you are, to make an informed decision about the right place for you to be investing your money. This is a much, much, much bigger conversation than budgeting. Much bigger conversation than budgeting. So rather than leaning into making sure that you have a monthly budget, how are you going to build wealth? And here's why it matters. Cash is queen, okay? No longer is it king. But the real reason any of this matters is so that you have the cash flow to live the life that you want to live. Cash flow. I was driving over here today to the studio in this thought, in this conversation of what's the most important thing that I can talk about today that's going to bring the most amount of value. I'm always in that conversation. But today, I want you to think about cash flow. Whether or not you invest in real estate, whether or not you invest in the stock market, whether or not you invest in building a business. Those all need to create a cash flow for you so that you can do the things that you want to do. What's in your heart that you want to do? So you've built the business, you've built the real estate empire. When you wake up, and I hope that you get to wake up at 90 years old, you can say that not only do you have millions and millions of dollars or an awesome real estate portfolio, but that you're able to say that you took the trips, that you're able to say that you created the memories for your kids and for your life. If you don't have kids, for your family, if you don't, who are the people in your life that you want to spend the most amount of time with? What are the memories that you want to have? What is most important to you? And cash flow is the way that you're going to create it. What do I mean by that? Let's say that you have a successful real estate portfolio. We'll use Parker as an example. Go back and listen to her episode. It was amazing. She shared with us how she and her husband accumulated a portfolio of short-term rentals that generate $1 million a year in revenue. So I think they have 10 properties. And those 10 properties generate her and her husband $1 million in revenue every single year. After expenses, which means mortgage payments, utilities, and upkeep of all of these properties and fees to Airbnb or wherever they're at, VRBO, wherever, after expenses, they have $300,000 a year. Some of that goes to the IRS. That's for a different conversation. But then the rest of that, she and her husband have to live to do what? I hope for her and for anybody else that when you have a steady stream of cash flow coming into your life, that you can do the things that you want to do, because at the end of the day, what's most important is that you can say, I lived a full life and a happy life, and that money wasn't the reason that you didn't do that. That is why cash is queen. You could have a ton of investments, non-liquid assets that are not making you any cash flow, and you could be sitting on an empire for what purpose? What can you do with that, right? Maybe someday down the road you can sell it, but if you don't have cash flow and you're not living your life, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are any of us doing in that conversation? A whole healthy world. People and women and children and men being liberated means that we get to be in peace and in love with our lives. And I know that there are more people who do not have that than people who do. I hope that by being a part of this conversation, being a part of my world, listening to my podcast, listening to my conversations, you can hear that you're not alone. And also the whole reason for all of this, for having your shit together, for choosing investment strategies, is you get one life in this body. You get one life with this family. You get one life with these lessons. Make it a great one. And when it comes to cash flow, ask yourself this: are the investments that I'm making, are the decisions that I'm making, all for the purpose of giving me cash flow so that I can enjoy my fucking life? Because we can get really off track in accumulating wealth. We can get really off track in being in a not enough conversation, like you're never going to have enough. Yeah, you got to plan for rainy days, but what if you could plan for really cool ones too? So I want to leave you in this question. If you don't love the situation that you're in with your cash flow, how are you going to change it? Who are you really? Who are you born to be? Let's awaken that inside of you and then choose the right investment strategies, the right career, the right game plan, the right financial plan that fits best for you. It takes work for you to ask those questions, and they're the most important questions of all. So you don't wake up someday living someone else's life, that you did it on your terms. And I know that when more women have more wealth at our fingertips, we're going to have a healthier world because we have people that we care about deeply and ourselves, and that's who we are. And we're going to take our money and we're going to fold it back into our economy, and we're going to have healthier kids, healthier schools, safer places to be. That is what will happen when the feminine wing rises to meet the men. And let me be clear, this is not a conversation against men, because there are people in my industry that are having that conversation. This is a conversation about us rising together because men are tired too. An over-masculine world is not working anymore. We've got to step into our feminine, all of us, so that we can love more and that we can grow together and that we can soar together. Thanks for watching or listening to this episode of Real Money. I'm Lisa Chastain, your host, and I'll be right here coming back with new conversations. Stick with me. Subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you loved about this episode. Let me know about what you learned, and I'll see you next time.